Okay, Chris, who is it on the phone from Siberia?
From Siberia calling via Skype, we have Tan on the line.
Great. All right, Ton,
Hi,
can you hear
Tan.
me?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, you sound great.
Wonderful.
I wonder if you would stay on the line for a little bit. Davy is going to
Yeah.
introduce a pair of haikus from Tanya Foster's book, A Swarm of Bees in High Court. And maybe you'll be one of the people I'll ask to respond to that. Does that sound like a good thing?
It does, yeah.
Okay. Davy, would you unmute and read for us the pair of haiku that you've selected from this relatively new work to ModPo?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and read the last pair, which is as follows. She wants a sleep that shudders thought like the sparse corner bodega. She wants a sleep shut against the neighborhood graffiti of noise.
Okay, so in a minute, I'm going to ask you to read those again. And I'm going to ask Amber Rose, Max, and Kamara, Amber Rose, Max, and Kamara, and then Ton to respond. And then, Davey, you can add a final word on that. So you want to read it again, and we'll turn then to Max first.
Okay, sure. As follows. She wants a sleep that shudders thought like the sparse corner bodega. She wants a sleep shut against the neighborhood graffiti of noise.
Thank you. Max, start us anywhere. Just give us a brief observation or thought about the structure or about what's being said there.
Sure. I'm getting these strong imagist references in images like sparse corner bodega, graffiti of noise, although that feels much more contemporary than anything the images would have said, right? But what strikes me, or what makes this poem these poems interesting compared, in this week of the syllabus and compared to the other imagist poems that we've been discussing and typically discuss, is that there's a lot more, there's desire in these poems. She wants a sleep, and there's a desire for something that's rather abstract and hard to measure. For example, the image of sleep is not, that doesn't strike me as an image that William Carlos Williams or HD would write about. It's or maybe Williams would have, but not HD. It feels very, it's intangible, right? And then it's additionally charged with this desire. She wants this, that there's this, and so we get this whole motive from the actor here that's kind of troubling the what we would call the pure imagism of the poem.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Max. Amber Rose, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, a thought that I'm having is that I think all of the pairs of Foster's haikus seem to be very aware that they are poems on the page. And so I think maybe that's a way that we can think about kind of bridging or pulling forward the Dickinsonian influence kind of into how we're seeing the images. I'm looking at a sleep, and in a previous haiku, a sleep is together as one word and then a sleep, or even the slight difference from shutter's thought, and then shut is repeats but is separated. So there's a lot of play going on between the visual and the sonic of the poem that's bringing forward these other kind of sensory elements. So building on what Max was just saying, yeah, moving away from just the image to thinking about sound,
yes,
both in the content and in the experience of the poem.
Yeah, shutter, the word shutters works really, really well. It is, according to Tanya, some kind of slant reference to the Stein Picasso portrait poem, which has all that shutters shut and shutters shut. But it is also a pun, a homophonic pun on shutter, meaning this is a person who's going through some difficult times if you have a single speaker speaking these haiku. And so shutter is a pun, the kind of pun that the images might not have done, preferring the image of the shutters. Thank you, Amber Rose. And Kamara, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this sleep thing and sleep and rest and what this she in the poem or what the poem's creation of sleep might mean. And I think one way I've been thinking about it is what sleep does in these two haikus. In the first, sleep that shudders, so the sleep that can shut or shudder, or I also think just shh that can quiet
Yeah.
sound wise. And then in the second, she wants the sleep shut. So the sleep is something that can close or can be a barrier or that can do some type of action to protect almost or
Yeah.
push against something.
Right.
So I think what this pair of haikus in the poem itself makes me think of is many different ways in which we can the many different significances of rest and sleep that are gendered, that are foreclosed upon some and privileged to others,
Ooh.
and that are not only about a body in a bed, you know. So yeah.
That's great. Tan, do you want to make an observation about the discussion or about the poems?
Sure. It's kind of funny that I, as a deaf person, am responding to a poem that I haven't seen
Mm.
because I have to rely on sound only, which basically makes it a very interesting experience because I have no idea about the wordplay. I don't separate the words anymore. It's just like sounds. And so what it leads to me in that poem is that it sounds very angular. First of all, like this is the first thing that I thought of. I'm like, oh, it has a lot of edges.
Mm.
And it has a lot of corners and it kind of like wraps around itself, but in a very kind of sharp way that isn't comforting.
Yeah.
And is at the same time. And that like with the words that I could hear, like with like, you know, Sparse Corner of the Bodega and the Graffiti of Noise, it really reminded me a lot about, you know, going to sleep when anxious. And this is a surprisingly accurate portrayal of just like deep-seated anxiety that creates that white noise in your brain that makes it absolutely impossible for you to fall asleep then. And I love it. So, you know, like last season, let's say, I kind of had a galaxy brain moment that I can perceive poems through sound when I don't understand the meaning. And this is how I approached this one. But also it led me to actually an observation that I had this week.
Yeah.
With this week's poems, I had two. One of them is something that is a response to something that Davey said before, that imagism like is a way of dealing with trauma. And then Jake brought up the fact that, you know, California is burning. And so we all like, well, I'm not in California, but Siberia is always burning. And there's always smog or pollution or like something. And when you go to social media, pretty much every day you see like a picture too of smoggy sky when you don't see anything but just gray chemicals. Which definitely does remind me of images. And what it also reminds me of is that feeling of you see it too, right? Like I am not the only one who sees this from my window, right? Like this is real. And I didn't like imagism at first, and that now that we have that conversation here, I'm thinking that maybe it is a way of almost validating your existence and validating your just extremely messed up circumstance in which you're in, being like, okay, I'm not the only one who sees this. I'm not the only one who experiences this. My emotion here is not even, it's not even relevant that much because we're all going through it. What is relevant is getting a confirmation that I'm not sitting here alone, choking on chemicals or watching the sky burn or doing like looking at whatever it is. I
Yes.
am not the only person who does that. And if I look at images and from that lens, it becomes almost communal.
Yes. Ton, that was what
yeah.
you've said just now is terrific, as always. I just want to draw out 2 points you made. One is a rereading of graffiti of noise, that phrase, for me at least, into a kind of white noise background. But the second is the last point you made, which is the idea that people in California can look to the sky and see what people in Siberia can see, which is a strange version of the everyone that I was talking about before. Everyone is smarter than anyone. So it takes that kind of ironic unity. Thank you, Ton. Thank you so much. It's great to hear you. And would
It's
you
great to hear as
then
well.
say bye-bye, hang up, and I hope you'll call us soon again at another webcast.
I am planning to.
Okay, great. Be well. Thank you,
Oh,
Ton.
yeah. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.